Hey everybody, it's another midweek Wednesday night. It's Wednesday, July 15th, and I want to thank you for joining me. My name is Jeff. We're Two Cities Church. If you're finding this stream for the first time on Facebook, or maybe you're watching us on YouTube right now, this stream is built for parents especially. It's designed to help parents lead their families. In fact, what we call this on Wednesday nights is Lead Them Well. And you can see from the picture on the screen, do you like that brand new image that we're using? I want to thank Rosie Osborne for this picture because it looks awesome. But this picture summarizes what we're trying to do on Wednesday nights. It shows a dad teaching his son about the Bible. And really what we do on Wednesday nights is, as a church, we're trying to equip you parents, moms and dads, to be the pastor of your children, to be the primary discipler of your children. We believe that this is your God-given responsibility, but we also believe that most parents can use a little bit of help. So we call this subtitle Family Bible Training, because this is your opportunity as a dad to gather your children around the tablet or the TV and for you to teach them. And I'm just going to give you a few things to think about as you teach them, Dad. Or perhaps you're a single mom, or dad is deployed right now and you're by yourself, moms, and you have the opportunity to pour into your children and to help form your children's opinions about God. We say this a lot at Two Cities Church. We believe that much of what a child understands about God, they're going to understand through the lens of mom and dad when they're young. And it's only after they get older that they start to view God a little bit differently and start to view God from the Bible or from the stories that they hear from other people. So mom and dad, you have a huge opportunity and a holy responsibility to lead your children. And they need to see it in mom and dad, and they need to hear it from mom and dad. So if you're going to lead them well, let's talk about creation. Because today we are studying through the first chapter of the book of the Genesis, the first chapter of the Bible. We're in Genesis chapter 1, and today we're going to look at the second night, the second day of creation. I told you last week, children, parents, that I believe the Bible describes 6 literal 24-hour periods. 6, what you and I would know today as days. I believe those are 6 24-hour periods that we're reading about in the Bible. Last Wednesday, we looked at day 1 of creation. And we looked at how God made light out of the darkness. Today, we're going to look at day 2 of creation. And day 2 is found for us in Genesis chapter 1, verses 7 and 8. It actually starts in verse 6. Before I read this verse, these are the verses that we're going to commit to memory today. I want to point out these 3 dots on the screen. You see them at the beginning of the verse and you see them at the end of the verse. These 3 dots, or 3 periods in a row, children, this is an English term, are referred to as an ellipsis. And it usually means something came before that sentence right there, or something came after this sentence, and I didn't include what came before this or what came after this. In other words, verse 7 starts before what we see on the screens, and this rolls right into verse 8, the last sentence on the screen, but verse 8 keeps going, and there's more than just verse 8. Because we're memorizing this, I didn't want to give you everything that verse 7 and verse 8 said. I'm just choosing the middle of verse 7 and the end of verse 7 and the beginning of verse 8, the middle of these 2 verses together. So we're committing as a church, and if you're following us in the Chattahoochee Valley, or maybe you found us somewhere else around the country or around the world, doesn't matter. We're committing as a church to memorizing Scripture. And we say, moms and dads, you should be memorizing these verses, and you should help your children memorize these verses. In fact, after this video is over with today, we're going to give you in the show notes down there as part of the post for this stream, we're going to give you information on how to go to a closed Facebook group. And in this closed Facebook group, moms, dads, you can take a video of your children memorizing this verse and repeating it from memory, or you can take a video of you repeating this verse from memory. Dads, if you're deployed overseas, and you can deploy or you can memorize these verses right along with your family, even though you're somewhere else halfway around the world. So the way that we do this is we tell where this verse is found, we say the verse out loud, and then we repeat where the verse is found. This is Genesis 1, 7, and 8. And it says, God made this space to separate the waters of the earth from the waters of the heavens. And God called the space sky. Genesis 1, 7, and 8. Now I want you to go ahead right there at home out loud. Parents, you lead your children to go ahead and say where the verses are found. Repeat these verses that you see on this video and then say where they're found again. Why don't you go ahead and do that right now? Now let's talk about what you have in Genesis chapter 1 on the second day of creation. This is essentially what God did on the second day of creation. And it looks like just a very little bit of information that we've been given about what God did, but you're going to see in just a second that he did a lot of work on the second day. Depending on what translation of the Bible that you use, this translation is the New Living Translation today. But depending on what translation you use, you're going to get different words here for water, and you're going to get different words here for heaven, because the Bible is struggling to explain something to us that no human being really can comprehend, that none of us have ever seen. And what it's struggling to explain is, what did it look like before there was really a sky and an atmosphere around the earth and the earth itself? So the Bible uses the idea of waters. So you have water on the earth. We know what that looks like. It's rivers and ponds and lakes and oceans. And then you have waters in the heavens. That's what we would think about when we see clouds and when the rain falls down. But then you have heavens above the waters. And heavens above the waters, because of our science and our technology today, we know that refers to the sky. Back in ancient times where they didn't have telescopes, it was really hard to determine. The clouds are at one level, and then you have stuff above the clouds, stars above the clouds. But where do the cloud levels stop and the star level begin? What the Bible is describing for us today is God created the atmosphere around the earth, and he separated the atmosphere around the earth from the rest of the universe. That's where he separated the waters of the earth. Think about the waters of the earth like the clouds floating in the sky. And he separated the waters of the earth from the heavens, notice the S, plural, from the universe. So that there is a definite point where you leave the earth's atmosphere and you fly off into outer space. When astronauts circled the earth, when astronauts went to the moon, when astronauts went to outer space, they left the separation of the waters and went into the heavens, if you were to use Genesis chapter 1 language. Or the Bible just makes it easy for us. God gave us a word for this today. They left the atmosphere and went into the sky. We use the word sky to refer to the stars at night, and we also use the word sky to refer to the clouds in the air. But the Bible is telling us today there is a difference between the atmosphere around the earth and the outer space. Now, Pay close attention to what we're going to do next, moms and dads, because this is extremely important to your children's soul. In fact, if you're a middle schooler or a high schooler that's watching this stream right now, what we're going to do in just a second may be one of the most important things that you will ever do for your understanding of the universe that we live in. In fact, it can help you when people start to criticize or start to shoot holes in what we believe as Christians about the way that the universe was formed. I'm going to give you an answer to one of the most important questions someone will ever ask about how everything came into being. So parents, now you have an opportunity to show your children this separation. Because about 25 or 30 years ago, the human race, really the United States, but the human race did something amazing. For many years, we had telescopes where we could look out and we could see the stars. But those telescopes that are located here on Earth, they had to look through the sky. They had to look through the Earth's atmosphere to see the stars out there. And there were very distorted images of the stars from a long distance away. No matter how good the telescope, the atmosphere itself caused the images that we could see to be distorted. So we launched a telescope into space. And we said, if you could put a telescope outside of the atmosphere and let that telescope look out into the stars, it wouldn't have interference with the Earth's atmosphere. It's called the Hubble Space Telescope. And children, what I want you to do, especially for the young ones in just a second, is I want you to ask mom and dad to go on the internet with you and supervise you while mom and dad are there with you. I want you to search for the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA. And when you go to NASA, I want you to look for pictures that we can see from the Hubble Space Telescope. And what these pictures are showing us is, what does it look like outside of our atmosphere? What does the sky that God created on day 2 look like? I'm going to show you one of the images that you're going to see from the Hubble Space Telescope. Do you know what this is a picture of? It's an entire galaxy, really far away from here. But what you see is all of these little specks in that galaxy are stars, like our star, the sun that gives our planet light. These are all little stars. This is not a computer enhancement. This isn't made up image. This is a picture taken from outer space, taken from the Hubble Space Telescope, and then sent back to Earth on what it looks like to look at the stars the way, or the galaxies of the universe, the way that God would see the galaxies of the universe. Parents, I want you to spend just a few minutes with your children explaining to them that everything that we can see here on Earth and everything that the Hubble Space Telescope can see to the farthest corners of the universe, all of that, listen to this, was made by God, and all of it was made on the second day. For you middle schoolers and high schoolers, this is too easy for you. I get it. So I've got a more challenging question for you. I want you to go do a little bit of research. I'm not going to tell you the answer to this, but the answer is out there on the internet. I want you to research the most distant star or the most distant galaxy from the Earth that we know about. Now it says on here, distant from the Earth to the farthest star, but I really should reverse the order, because when we measure distance in space, we measure it in time. Did you know that? We use light years to describe the distance in space. And it's the amount of time that light has to travel over the course of 1 year in order to arrive at the Earth. So I want you to go out there, forget the second forget what's in the parentheses for just a second. I want you to go out there and I want you to research what is the most distant known star from the Earth. How far away is it? How many years did it take for light to get from that star to the earth? That information is easy to find out there on the internet. But here's the second question, and this, I think, is one of the most important things that you're going to hear in all of creation from me. In fact, it's really, really important that you hear this. Because sometimes scientists, sometimes people who don't believe in God, sometimes atheists will tell you that there's no possible way God could have created the heavens and the earth in 6 literal days if the farthest star away is many thousands or tens of thousands of light years, meaning it took thousands or tens of thousands of years. I'm not going to tell you how far, but it took many, many years, thousands of years, tens of thousands of years for that light to reach the earth, which says there has to be an earth that is much older than the 6 literal days that we read about in creation. What atheists and some scientists will try to tell you is that is proof that the Big Bang really happened and God didn't create everything on 6 days. But I need you to hear this from me very clearly. And then I want you to be able to explain this answer to anybody who asks you the question, how is it possible that Adam and Eve could see the light from those stars on the 6th day of creation? And now I'm going to give you the answer to the second part of this question because it's this important. Listen to me. When people try to date the earth, they use known measures. When people try to date how far away the farthest star is from the earth, they use these known distances. We have the formula that will tell us how long it takes for light to travel from that star to the earth. And then we try to date everything based on that. But listen carefully to what I'm going to say. When God created the heavens and the earth, He made them in such a way that Adam and Eve could see the light from that most distant star. They could see it with their own eyes. And they could see it on day 6. That means God not only created that star and started it burning brightly in the sky, but God also caused the light to travel so that by the time day 2 happened, that light was already hitting the earth. When God created the star, He created it so that the light was already traveling to the earth. The light was already hitting the earth when He made those stars. So that by the time Adam and Eve show up on day 6, the stars are already in the sky. It's not a blank sky. There's already light from the stars in the sky. You need to know this because when God creates trees, He doesn't create a tiny little plant and then after many years it grows into a giant tree. No, God creates full-grown trees for Adam and Eve to look at. When God creates Adam and Eve, He doesn't create babies in the garden. He creates full-grown men and women who are able to see in the sky. And when God creates stars, He not only creates fully developed stars, but He creates stars that are already sending the light, that the light has already traveled to the earth by the time that Adam and Eve show up. This is important because when people date stuff in creation, they fail to take into consideration that what God created was fully grown and fully developed when He created it. Meaning those stars were already, when He created them so that the light had already moved towards the earth. This is an important, in fact, it's a super important aspect of your faith. Because many people are using the distance that stars are from the sky. They're using the depth of the Grand Canyon to say that the earth must be millions or many millions of years older than the Bible says. Unless, of course, God created stars and already moved the light to the earth when He created them. Unless He created full-grown trees and not just little saplings, unless he created fully grown people and not babies. This is the greatness of the God that we serve. And I hope today is exciting for you. Parents, when you scroll through those images on the Hubble Space Telescope and you show your children those beautiful pictures that we're able to see because of our scientific advancements, show them. That's our great God putting his glory on display. Look at how beautiful those stars are, those galaxies are that we can see today because of our Hubble Space Telescope. I hope day 2 of creation has been encouraging to you. Thanks for tuning in today.